All right, in this video, we're going to look at homework problem 6.2. And in this problem, we're going to be looking at a number of different internal control principles and trying to kind of analyze and assess how those principles were violated, essentially. And so let's go ahead and format this with what do we want to do here? Let's say the principle violated and an explanation. How about that? And then this will just be another letter, A, B, C, D, so on and so forth. Let's give ourselves some space. These will be our headers. Okay, so we've got ourselves kind of a little, actually, let's go A, B, C, all the way down to F. Oh, come on, why do you not know that that's the alphabet? Excel should be able to fill that in, but that's fine. Okay, so let's make these a little bigger. Okay. We'll wrap text here, so if we're typing in, it'll just continue going, but we can make that a little bigger as well. But yeah, here we go. We're kind of formatted well, and let's get started. Okay, so in number A, or letter A, I should say, it says your company keeps its unnumbered checks in an unlocked desk drawer. So, oh, you know what? I didn't really think about is there's more than one principle that can be violated in these problems, but that's okay. So we'll just say one. The first principle is physical controls. Things like, those would include things like door locks or, actual locked drawers, etc. And I'm going to do 1 and 2 just within this one cell. So in order to drop down like that, you see that how the cursor goes down? Whoop. Oh, I just screwed that up. Oh gosh. All right, let me try that again. It's physical controls, but as I was saying, you have to hold Alt on your keyboard and then click Enter, and that moves your little cursor down so that you can kind of make a list inside of a cell. That's a handy little tool in Excel to know, or a trick. And number 1 was physical controls was violated, and then adequate record keeping is the second control violated there. And for number 1, we're going to say that checks could be easily stolen from the drawer, and that ties back into the lack of physical controls. And then again, hold Alt on your keyboard, Enter to go down a space there, and then we'll do 2, and we'll say unnumbered checks means that they are not easily tracked or reconciled, or reconciled. A little more space there, and I'm just going to move this over a little bit, make it a little cleaner. Yeah, so you want numbers on your checks because, like, when we're doing our bank reconciliation problems, you want to be able to look on the bank rec and see what check number it is and when it clears or doesn't clear, etc., and then compare to our records so that we can easily assess. And also, if check numbers are missing, that's kind of an indication that something, if checks go missing, that kind of thing, you can see like 1, 2, 3, and if all of a sudden the next check is 7, you would know that there's some checks missing. So numbered checks are a good thing. Okay, let's see, letter B says the owner of Corner Store has a number of trusted employees she's known for years with whom she attends church. Since these employees are so trustworthy, she doesn't bond them. And bonding an employee means that they are essentially like insured against, in case they do happen to do some kind of fraud instance or something, you have some insurance against that occurrence potentially happening. So there's really just one control here that is being violated, and that would be insuring assets and bonding key employees. Let's click the wrap text there to make that wrap. See how that wrapping text means it goes down inside the cell. And let's say that even though employees are potentially trustworthy, that is not something that can be guaranteed. So maybe we trust them, but we should still go through the process of having insurance, etc., as needed in case we're making an incorrect assessment about their trustworthiness. And I'm just going to pull that over so we don't have to wrap text as much. I just like it to be, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but okay. Anyway, C says Jack and Jill, 2 long-time employees, take turns operating the cash register and helping stock shelves. Each has a key and access code to the register. Okay, so let's say in this one, we need to establish responsibility, and for example, only, and maybe I should say, we should really say like delegate responsibility individually. And here we're going to say only one person should work the register at a time and should have access to the cash register at a given time. So each individual employee should have their own, password or key set or something, and change out the drawers, etc., so that the cash that's in that drawer is specifically the responsibility of that specific employee who had access during that time, or else you commingling. It makes it harder to track who's in charge if something does go wrong. Okay, the Paradise PTA hosted a bake sale to raise money. Yada yada yada. The she's the PTA president drove the cookies over to a market, sold them for $1 each, kept the cash receipts in a box. Leftover cookies were given to the food bank. President took the money from the sale, deposited it, and gave it to the deposit slip. So let's see, number of different things in this one. Let's say number one is safeguarding cash, and it's not really that safeguard. I'm going to say in this one, the specific thing is the segregation of duties. Let's just say that because I think. Oh no, let's do put. Okay, wait. The first one I want to do is safeguarding cash. Then remember, Alt Enter to drop down in space. The second one is going to be segregation of duties. Alt Enter to drop down again. The third one is going to be separation, and this is kind of separation of duties, but separation of custody of cash. That really falls under segregation of duties, so I'm going to leave it at that. And I think let's just leave it at 2 different violations there. So the first violation is that the cash receipts were kept in a box, unlocked. Let's put a question mark, on the table. So somebody could have come along and grabbed the cash box, or it's just not really secured as well as it could be, not safeguarded as well. And then as far as segregation of duties goes, ideally there would be one individual doing record keeping, and one individual with custody of the cash. And, the cookies, I guess, if you want to call those assets or whatever. But you just don't really want someone who's doing all of those things together, because she could have got $300 or $400 and kept $200 and only gave a portion in, and since they're doing the deposit slips and they're doing all the record keeping, that could lead to, if two people are doing that individually, it's less likely that they're going to, you could still have collusion between them to say, hey, let's rip off the PTA or whatever, and do it, collude together to steal money or something. But it's less likely for collusion to happen, and the less amount of employees involved in the process, the more likely that something could go wrong. But in the real world, this kind of stuff happens all the time, because when you're a small little nonprofit type organization or just some little school organization thing, it's hard to find people. You have to get a bunch of people together who understand how to do these internal control processes, etc. That can be difficult. So anyway, that's the real world. Sometimes you gotta mitigate the risk as much as possible, but sometimes you just accept the risk for some of these things too. But knowing that they exist is an important part of good management. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. On E, Tom is a secretary for Big Bucks Corporation. Every day he opens the mail, pulls out checks to give to the accountant, and then the accountant prepares a deposit slip and takes to the bank. Okay, so on this one, again, I think I'm going to say segregation of duties is really the primary principle being violated. And in this instance, ideally, two people would open mail together and make copies of checks. And so, one would deposit, other giving the copy, and because one thing that could happen is all the records are given to the accountant, so they could, do some weird stuff with the deposits. So ideally, with two people would open mail together and make copies of the checks, and ideally, the individual responsible for the accounting / record keeping would not be depositing the checks. You would have some other individual actually taking the checks and depositing them, so that you separate out those duties as well. Okay, so again, segregation of duties is I think I talked about this in class, just really like one of the most key things in terms of internal controls. And it can be hard, small organizations like we talked about, it becomes difficult, but it's still very important and essential control for preventing issues. Okay, last one, medium company's office manager approves all purchase orders, accountant matches the PO to the invoices received, enters invoices into the system. When the invoices are due, the accountant generates checks for the office manager to sign. However, if there's an emergency, the accountant can sign the checks. She's also a signatory on the bank account. Okay, so again, I think I'm just going to go with segregation of duties. I mean, that is really the thing we're getting at here with these problems. So some of the things that could happen, the accountant could write checks to related parties, for instance, and cover up fraud. I mean, that is one thing that could happen, because if they're the only ones involved in the process, this is better because you have two people involved in the process. But if in a pinch the accountant can sign the checks, that could lead to some issues. And again, that kind of gets back to this point about writing the checks, doing the fraud. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's kind of the main thing. I guess we could say ideally the accountant shouldn't be a signatory on the account. Owner or another employee should review all checks before signing. Let's see what else. The office manager could approve fraudulent purchase orders as well, so that could be an issue. So really, again, it gets back to this idea of segregation of duties, and you hopefully have someone, not just an office manager, be in charge of doing all the purchasing, because even if the accountant is reviewing and doing their process in this, if those purchase orders aren't accurate and they're not catching it for some reason or some way, because the office manager is the only one who is both signing and creating those purchase orders. So separating those out as much as you could would be ideal. Okay, cool. All right, that's all the internal controls and issues, etc., that kind of pop up there. And I will see you all in the next video for 6.3.